Hey, what is up guys? So I have a very interesting slash fun topic for you guys today, and we are going to be talking about new implementations in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! We all know that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game that is constantly evolving. We're getting more and more new cards, and we're also getting new game mechanics. We've gotten ritual monsters, we've gotten fusion monsters, we've gotten synchro monsters, and XYZ monsters. So, those are all great additions into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But as the game goes on, we always need more and more content for the game. That is what kind of keeps the game fresh, and what, wants more players to actually pick up the game, perhaps if they just think that these new cards are really cool and they want to jump back into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And see how it is in the current game state. But this is just one interesting idea that I had. It might not ever take into effect, but it's a pretty cool idea. So it's perks in Yu-Gi-Oh! If you are unfamiliar with what perks are, they are implemented in, I think, Call of Duty was one of the first games. I don't recall exactly, but Halo 4 also has perks. Basically, it is a setup in which you get to have these special things that are on your class or your soldier, and basically regardless of what deck you're playing or what gun you're using, these perks are always with you. So I think it would be kind of cool in one way to introduce perks into the game. So I'll kind of explain them a little bit more later as we go along. So first off, you might be wondering, how will this actually be implemented in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, first off, I was thinking that they could perhaps actually just have you write down what perk that you would actually want to select. If you guys are familiar with this is basically what the regionals or any Yu-Gi-Oh tournament that's official by Konami, they have this little deck list and stuff that you actually fill out, and at the bottom maybe there's a checklist of what perk that you would actually like to run. For now, I don't know how many perks that you would get. This all needs to be something that we'll have to decide later on, whether we actually decide to have a fun day and I can invite a lot of you guys. We can play test around, have some fun with these perks, and see if it's actually a more enjoyable game. Because as of right now, I feel like a lot of these perks are pretty balanced. Nothing is really overpowered. But after more testing, we can decide what needs to be implemented into the game, as well as what is too OP or broken in the game. So, like I said, at the bottom you'd fill out something that says perks or something like that. And if you have ever been to a tournament, this is actually a really long picture from a long time ago. This is actually from LA Regionals, but anyways, basically it would also, on your slip where you would have to fill in if you've lost or won the game, you would actually have to, on it would tell you what the guy was running for a perk. That way you couldn't switch your perk in between games. Obviously, that would be considered something like cheating. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about what these perks would be. And a lot of these are kind of ideas from Call of Duty, so it's kind of funny as well. But anyways, so the first perk that I want to introduce to you guys would be Sitrep. And the effect of the Sitrep would be that your opponent must reveal their entire extra deck. And Call of Duty basically lets you kind of see explosives on the map, as well as any score streaks that are on the ground. So basically, it allows you to know kind of what perhaps your opponent is actually playing. So that's kind of just one advantage you have. The other perk that I have, it's one of the perks that I really hated in Call of Duty, but it's called Last Stand. And for Yu-Gi-Oh! This effect you would only be able to use once, but in Last Stand, when you summon a monster and your opponent negates or destroys it on the summon, so something like Bottomless Trap Hole, something like Solemn Warning, what you get to do is you get to negate the destruction, and the monster moves to defense mode and becomes 0/0, and its effects are negated until your next standby phase. And you cannot use the monster as XYZ or synchro material with that monster that you use Last Stand on. And again, you can only use this effect once in the entire duel. The next perk that would be kind of cool in the game would be Quickdraw. And so the effect of Quickdraw would be that you get to go first unless your opponent is also running Quickdraw. So this would be probably one of the, I guess you could argue, one of the most meta ones, but it has its drawbacks, because if everyone's technically running it, then nothing really happens. It's just like in Call of Duty, if both players have Quickdraw, then whoever has the better reaction still wins. But depending on what gun they're running, there's also that factor. And going first is kind of important in Yu-Gi-Oh! So if your deck can't go second, obviously you just run Quickdraw, and if your opponent runs it, then it's just the normal game of Yu-Gi-Oh! The next thing would be something that I think should have been introduced into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! A long time ago. I think this almost doesn't even need to be a perk, but it'd be kind of cool as a perk anyways. But this would be Extended Extra Deck. So you'd be able to run 5 more cards in your extra deck, because there are so many darn new XYZs and Synchros. I feel like Konami really needs to bump up the extra deck to 20 cards, at least 20. If they want to make it, 50, well, that'd be excessive, but technically, it would leave the decks that have the options to make anything even better. So I think, 20 would be, I think, a reasonable number, because, there's just so many good cards that we all want to play, and I'm sure us as players would probably, enjoy 20 cards. I don't think anyone would be like, 20 cards in extra deck makes the game broken. I think as the game constantly evolves, we need to, change the number of cards in our extra deck. But nonetheless, pretty cool perk. Next up, this is one of my favorite ones. This is also another perk that I think should just be in the game. This one, I call it Ballistic Vest. You cannot get ftk'd, and your opponent cannot do more than 4,000 points of damage in one turn. So that prevents a lot of the OTKs and FTKs. And I know that is technically part of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But the thing is, it's not really like fair in a sense to get FTK'd, where you don't even have a chance to actually play your deck. And your opponent's like, oh, I'm going to play Solitaire, game over. And you're like, well, that was cool. And this could really help you if, your deck, happens to get OTK'd a lot. And maybe, you can come back from that. 4,000 points of damage is still a significant amount of damage. That's half of your life points in one turn. So it's not like it's like broken by not being able to be OTK'd. And I think that is relatively fair. The last perk I have for you guys is Ghost. So this makes it so your opponent cannot see or look at your graveyard unless a card calls for it. Like if you hit someone Dark on Dragon, you would have to show your opponent your graveyard and show that you have 3 darks or something like that. Or if they activate a card like Soul Release or DD Crow, then they can actually see the graveyard. That way it puts it more on the player to actually memorize what is actually in the graveyard. And it's actually kind of bad to ask your opponent how many darks in graveyard, or like how many this or something like that, because you're kind of revealing to your opponent that you're afraid of a certain card or you're watching out for that kind of card. But memorizing the card is always the best thing to do. I mean, I check it constantly on a Dev Pro, and like on Dueling Network sometimes when my opponent actually checks my graveyard, I'll be like, oh, okay, he might be worried about me going for a certain play, and then I can just go all in, no fear, because it's kind of the thing to do when your opponent gets kind of worried and asks how many cards in grave, how many cards in hand. Sometimes, that can give like kind of like a tell sign. Do they call it? What do they call it? Like a tick in poker, I think, or a tilt. That's what they call it, a tilt. There's always like tilt signs when your opponent is doing something. But nonetheless, I thought it was just a kind of a cool idea. Like I said, I don't know if they'll actually implement it into the game. I mean, this is just one suggestion that I have to make the game, kind of evolve. Whether they decide to make it so you can just like check a checklist off of like the tournament list, or if they have it so like there are these special cards. Maybe they're not even cards. Maybe they're like certain like badges, kind of like. Remember in Pokemon how you'd win these, if you guys ever played Pokemon, you win badges, and these badges, they were actually like a physical like pin, like you can pin it on your shirt. And I think it'd be kind of cool, perhaps maybe these were tournament prizes. That would be even cooler. That way we could have it so these players that go into tournaments have, like maybe as like a prize pool, and they'll have like, the top 8 get like perks or something like that. I don't know what they could do to actually release these, or they can just release them in tins, or like however they release them. I just thought it would be kind of a cool idea into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But if you guys have any suggestions for more perks or any ideas how we can actually make Yu-Gi-Oh! More interesting and fun. I mean, it's great seeing new cards, but I love the idea of XYZ. It's like I like the idea of like you stack cards on top of each other, and then to activate their effects, you have to get rid of the cards. I like that concept, and I thought like I said, most of these perks, I'll let you check them out in the description box as well, so you guys can reread them and decide if any of these are overpowered or whatnot. But like I said, if you have any more perks or like these little things that we have in Yu-Gi-Oh! That can be introduced into the game, hey, let me know in the comment section below, and maybe one day we can actually duel with these new type of game settings or use these perks just for fun. But like I said, guys, Yu-Gi-Oh! Needs to evolve, and eventually they'll come out with some new type of card. It's just going to happen, and then we'll have to adapt as players to see what is new in the game. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day, and let me know your thoughts on this idea of perks, and we'll have some discussion, and we can maybe have a fun day with it. But thanks for watching, guys. Asian Eyes out.